Hello, Patriots. Today we are discussing voter fraud, and we're going to get in details and break some voter fraud down. And my goal is to create a video that you can share with family, friends, etc. Here's why. I've heard a lot of people over the last couple weeks saying, Michael, I'm just not seeing that much information about voter fraud. Now, here's why, and let me explain this to you. If you are watching any type of mainstream media, you are going to see very little, if any, voter fraud. You're not going to find it there. If you're looking for it on Facebook, you will also not find it there. Facebook works kind of like a colander. The information comes in and they sift out what they want you to see. Now, let me give you an example of this. About a week ago, I was kicked off of Facebook for 7 days. I got the 7-day penalty, and here's why. I posted my theory on what would happen if Biden got in office. And a lot of people have this theory that he will get in that if he got in office, which he won't, and I will show you why here in a second. If he got in office, it would be 6 months to a year, and he would develop some kind of disease or disorder or illness where it would make him incapable of serving and he would have to step down. I made this comment on Facebook and I got deleted for 7 days or blocked or whatever you want to call it. Check this out. Allie on theblaze.com posted an article today, and this blows me away that she was able to post it, but because Biden said that this himself, this is unreal. He says, if we have a fundamental disagreement, then I will develop some disease and say I have to resign. This is mind-blowing. Here's what's crazy is I posted exactly this on his Facebook page last week, and that's what got me busted. So what I'm saying is, Facebook is blocking you. So here's what you have to do. If you want information, you have to go to these hearings in places like Pennsylvania, Georgia, whatever. You're not going to find them on most of the news outlets. You have to Google them and search for them. Now, here's why it's a problem. These hearings last anywhere from 2.5 to 4 hours, sometimes even longer. Now, why is that a problem? What happens is they bring tons of witnesses up and the witness talks for anywhere from 5 minutes to 20 minutes. And they're not professional speakers, so they don't download a ton of information. They tell a little bit of their story and a little intro here and a little this and that. Well, what happens is they're only given a certain amount of data fraud or voter fraud. And then after that, there's questions and answers. So to get any decent amount of information to share with your family and friends, you're going to have to sit through hours and hours and hours of these hearings in Pennsylvania and Georgia and places like that. So what I've done is I've watched a handful of little pieces from different things, and I'm going to put a lot of voter fraud into one video that you can share with family, friends, neighbors, put it online. It may get blocked, and we'll just have to take that chance. So let's begin. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at some generalities. And what I mean by that is we're going to go general, then we're going to go specific. So first things first, during a typical election, and pay close attention to this, there's typically only about a 50 to 60% voter turnout. 60% is extremely high. Matter of fact, when Trump ran against Clinton, there was a 60.1% voter turnout. That was considered a massive turnout. Most voter turnouts are close to 50% of the people that are registered to vote. Basically, let's say you have 100,000 people that are registered, 50 to 60,000 people turning out is a big, big deal. Okay, hold that thought as we read the rest of this information. Okay, in Nevada, we have 1,277,000 registered voters. But projected votes was 1,593,000. So what that means is there was almost 3 million registered, 1.277 registered, but almost 6 million actually voted. That's 125% more than are even capable of voting. That means there's 316,000 more people voted than are registered. That's in Nevada. Let's go on. Pennsylvania. They have 6,469,000 registered voters. But here's what's crazy. 7,041,672 turned out. That means there were 572,672, if I did the math correctly, more votes, more people that voted that are even registered to vote. That I could stop there, and that's all the information that you would need. Let's go on. The Minnesota, they have 3 million registered voters and 3.2 turnout. So 200,000 additional votes that are even capable of voting. That's the 107% turnout. North Carolina, 5.16 million registered voters and 5.43, and the number is about 300 more showed up to vote than are even capable, 300,000 more than are even capable of voting. Let's go back to Pennsylvania. Okay, if voter turnout is supposed to be about 50%, Pennsylvania should have had 3.3 million votes. They had 7 million. That's 3.7 million more people voted than are registered to vote. Okay, these are rough numbers. Actually, some of those numbers are exact. Now let's look at some more stuff. There's a gentleman by the name, they pulled this gentleman up front by the name of Russell Ramsland. Okay, Russell is a cybersecurity expert and owns a cybersecurity business. He has an MBA at Harvard and a political science degree at Duke. He's worked with organizations like NASA, MIT, and one of the things that he does, being a cybersecurity expert, is let's say NASA or MIT hires him. What they want to do is they want to make sure that their information systems are secure. They don't want anybody from outside being able to tap into these information systems. So they hire a guy like this with this kind of business. And what he does is he tries to penetrate the system with his technology, with his IT cyberspace expertise. Well, the goal is to penetrate the system, find out where the holes are, and fix it. So let's say you're a bank. Well, you obviously don't want banking information stolen. So you find out where the holes are, then you create systems to protect it. Well, that's what he does. Now, he's also kind of a statistical analyst. He can look at data and find out if there's any logical discrepancies, anomalies, where information is put into a system and somehow the information that comes back out is not the same. That there's some kind of voter fraud or discrepancy of some sort, okay? That's his gift. That's what he does. That's what his business does. Well, they looked at the election system in the United States this year. They were hired. I don't know if he was hired, if he did it on his own, or he was hired by these attorneys, but he looked at this U.S. election system. And what he did is he took into consideration population counts, demographics, voter turnouts. In addition, he took things like voting technology. For example, this Dominion system is able to produce this or calculate this many votes per second or per hour, per minute, or whatever. This voting system is able to produce this many, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I'm not exactly sure, and I don't remember the number of how many different voting systems there were in the U.S., but what happened is he looked at all of the voting systems, and he looked at the mathematical formula if they variated any between any candidates to see if these voting systems, if one system was off more than another, to see if there was any input problems or export problems or whatever you want to call it. Well, what he found is all the other systems together, there was only like between one system and another, less than 0.1% discrepancy between these other voting systems. However, when you put Dominion into the system, there was a 5% discrepancy for Biden. Basically, he got 5% more of the votes in Dominion systems than he did in these other systems. I don't think we realize the magnitude of these numbers. So if you're in Pennsylvania, for example, and you have 6.4 million voters, let's just say 6.4 million, that would mean Pennsylvania just naturally, without any logical reason, received an extra 320,000 extra votes for Joe Biden. Come on, folks. Here's the deal. Trump lost in Pennsylvania by 81,000 votes. Well, they say he lost by 81,000 votes. But yet 320,000 extra votes were put in for Biden than Trump. This number's astronomical. This is absolutely unbelievable that just the Dominion system does this. Now we're going to go back to Pennsylvania in just a little bit. Now, this same guy, and this is profound. He looked at rejection numbers. Let me explain this. In the last election, Pennsylvania mailed out almost 200,000 votes. It was 199,356 mail-in ballots. That's what they mailed out. They had, or maybe that's what came back in, but they had a 6.4 rejection rate, meaning there was something wrong with 6.4% of those votes, okay? And they had to be rejected. Now hold this thought. So 200,000 votes and had a 6.4 rejection rate. Hold that number in your head. And the Pennsylvania Secretary of State posted on their website, they sent out 1.82 million votes. Let me give you the exact number. Supposedly 1,820,148 mail-in ballots were sent out. Okay? That's how many ballots were sent out. Here's what's strange. 2.5, so it's 2,589,152 were mailed back. Get that in your head. 1.8 were sent out, almost 2.6 were sent back. The exact number is 768,998 extra votes came back than were actually mailed out. But here's what's crazy. You would think with that high of a number, obviously there's something wrong, and they would have a 20% rejection rate or a 50% rejection rate or even a 75% rejection rate. But that's not what happened, folks. They only had a 0.2 rejection rate, 0.2% as compared to the last election that had a 6.4 with only 200,000. Wake up, folks. This is serious. This is serious. This is shocking. Okay, that's not the alarming part. That's not the alarming part. You ready? These machines are capable of processing around 2,000 at the low number, so if someone's not very experienced, and 3,000 at a high number ballots per hour. Okay, keep these numbers in your head. So this guy, a different guy by the name of, and I'll get to his name here in a second, but he analyzed these systems, and he said, if a system is running fairly poorly and a person's not well trained, they can put in about 2,000 ballots an hour. And if a system is crushing it, best case scenario, it can run about 3,000 ballots per hour. Okay? Keep that number in your head. Between 2,000 and 3,000 each machine. Okay? In one precinct in Pennsylvania, they had a data dump in 90 minutes of 604,000 votes. One precinct, 600,000 votes in 90 minutes. And in 1 second, they had 337,000 votes dumped into the system. 337,000. Before I share with you something crazy alarming in this, let's look at some math. If we take 604,000 votes divided by 90 minutes, because what we want to find out is how many votes per hour that they were able to come up with, that means there's 6,711 votes per minute that they've got to account for. They've got to somehow show to the election officials that they were able to produce 6,711 votes per minute. So if you multiply 6,711 into 1 hour, that means it means that they were the machine supposedly calculated 402,660 ballots to get that 604,000 in 90 minutes. Does that make sense? So what would have to happen is a number of machines would have to, in 1 hour period of time, to get to that 604,000 in 90 minutes, they would have to produce 402,660 votes in an hour. Okay? Well, let's divide that average by the capacity that machine is able to operate in. So we already said the machines are able to operate at between 2,000 and 3,000 votes per hour. So let's do a round number of 2,500. That's an average, okay? If the machine are running at an average pace. Because remember, the machine calculates that much, okay? That means there had to have been, to get to that number of 604,000 machines, there had to have been 161 machines that had to be running full force in that precinct. Folks, there is not 161 machines operating full force at any precinct anywhere in the United States of America. That did not happen. Now, let's look at the data dump. That's if we try to figure out the 604,000. Let's look at the 337,000 momentary when they dumped in a second. How many machines do you need to produce 337,000 votes in 1 second? And I did the math basically, so if the average is 25 an hour, You have to divide that by 60 minutes, then the seconds and so forth. That means that the average machine, pay attention to this, the average machine calculates 0.69 votes a second, okay? So it has to do 0.69 votes a second. That would mean that to get that number, to calculate 337,000 votes in 1 second, because they had a 1 second data dump, that would mean they would need 488,450 machines to produce a 1 second 337,000 unit data dump. Folks, I don't believe there's 488,000 voting machines in North America. This is crazy. Okay, that's not the scary part of the dump. Okay, I told you 604,000 in 90 minutes, 337,000 in an instant. But here's what's alarming. 2,600 of those votes were for Donald Trump. The rest were for Joe Biden. Am I convinced yet? Are you convinced there's some voter fraud? This is insanity, folks. Okay. Now, mostly for a guy that had 15 people at his rallies. Now, you know why he had 15 people at a rally. He didn't need to do it. He had this in the bag. Now, let's keep looking at Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is mind-boggling, okay? In Pennsylvania, there was 8,021 people that voted that were dead. Pretty impressive. 22,000 mail-in ballots were returned the day they were mailed. So you've got all these mail-in ballots. What I say was 1.2 million that went out. Well, 22,000 of them came back the day they were mailed out. But here's what's more impressive. 20,000 were returned before they were even mailed out. Now, let me ask you a question. How do you return 20,000 ballots more, or 20,000 ballots the day before they're even mailed out? That means someone's producing fake ballots and people are taking them in and bringing them in. That's crazy. They return them before they'd even received one. So why does this happen? Okay, so here's what we're going to do next. We're going to look at some other stuff. There are eyewitness testimonies sworn by affidavits under the penalty of perjury that approximately 682,770 votes were not watched by Republican poll watchers. So approximately 700,000, 682,770 is what they're guesstimating, or what they've said, votes that were not watched in one precinct, supposedly, by poll watchers. I don't know if it was one precinct, but one or two. Either way, but from what I gather, it was just in I don't know if this was just in Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh, but let's go on. That's pretty significant. 682,000 votes that no Republican was able to watch to see, to verify if they were accurate. That's alarming. By the way, it's also against the law, and we'll talk about that here in a second. All that's Pennsylvania. Way more information than, and there's even about at least 100, 200 more testimonies of even more fraud that I don't even have time to go into detail. So that's Pennsylvania. Let's go to Georgia. So far, Georgia has, I'm going to say, what I would consider the least amount of reported fraud, but at the same time, I only heard about 4 or 5 testimonies, so there may be way more than this. And there's hundreds of testimonies, so I'm sure there's way more information that I'm going to give you. But based on what I could see, Georgia from all of the states had probably the least amount. So I gave you what I felt like the most amount of fraud in one state. And that's just a sampling. There's way more testimonies. But now I'm going to go to the least amount to show you how dramatic that even is. In Georgia, 2,506 felons voted illegally. So felons voted illegally. 66,240 people voted underage. I have no idea how they even got away with this. Here's what's crazy. In Georgia, guys, Trump lost by 12,670 votes. But somehow 66,000 voters voted underage. That's crazy. Let's go on. That's not all. 2,423 voted who were not even registered to vote. 1,043 used an illegal post office box. 4,826 voted in Georgia after the registration date, which is actually cancels their vote. Here's another impressive one. 10,350 people, 315 people, dead people voted. Pretty impressive. That alone, guys, that number alone is close to changing the outcome of the vote for the whole state of Georgia. 395 ballots were cast in 2 states, which basically what happens when you cast a ballot in one state and go to another state, cancels out both ballots. 15,700 filed a national change of address prior to November 3rd. 40,279 moved across county lines at least 30 days and failed to properly register. And those votes, so that's a total of 143,137. So that was caught. Here's what's crazy. In Georgia, pay attention to this. This is big. There were 231,188 return ballots with no record at all. For whatever reason, they were able to cancel. Now, they did cancel 134,000 of those, which left 96,600 of those votes that were counted. Again, no record for them at all. Basically just phantom votes. 96,000. You can pretty much guess who those are for. So, let's discuss some poll watchers, some of the testimonies from poll watchers, and there's tons of them. There's hundreds of them who are testifying, and only a few that I watched. But let's just give you an example of a couple. There's a guy by the name of Mark Amick, and I'm going to probably pronounce that name wrong. He's been a statewide poll watcher for years, and he, just like many other poll watchers, were not allowed to go into Georgia and see the election results. Well, he fought it hard. In DeKalb County, he was finally allowed within 6 feet, but no closer. Now, 6 feet is far enough away where you can kind of see what's going on, but you can't really see what's going on in the computers. I mean, with my glasses, I can step this far away from a machine and can't see it. So you imagine 6 foot, you're not going to be able to see it. Well, he watched these, I don't know if they were young guys, girls, whatever, but they were two poll counters that were counted in I think it was a period of 2, maybe 3 hours that he watched. These folks calculate these votes. Now, once the votes were calculated, they are stamped by an election official as approved. So these votes had got to a place where they were counted and approved. Okay? Well, he thought it was very weird because 10,717 votes were approved for Biden, but only 13, not 1,300, 13 were approved for Trump. And he knew something was dreadfully wrong. So he went to the appropriate authorities. He went up the chain and said, these have to be recounted. Something is dreadfully wrong. So what they did, got the elected officials together, went to this particular table and looked at these ballots and did a recount. And it came up with, instead of 10,717 votes for Biden, there was only 1,081. Folks, that's around 9,000 difference in one table full of people, and only in a period of 2 to 3 hours. And here's what's amazing. He was only allowed to watch those people for about 2 to 3 hours. And those were the only people he was allowed to watch. And those people supposedly were there for the entire day. So they could have been doing this the entire day. Remember, Trump lost Georgia by 12,000 votes. And we see here a 10,000 vote count for Biden in a couple hours that was caught. Imagine how many thousands or potentially hundreds of thousands of votes were not caught because the poll watchers were not allowed to watch. This guy, just by chance, was able to catch one group. Now, why do I share this story? Because it takes one table full of crooked people to change the outcome of an election for an entire state and theoretically for an entire country. That's how it's been working. Now, many of you have watched, there has been a video that made it to Facebook of State Farm Arena. This is shocking. So remember again, these machines are capable of calculating between 2,000 and 3,000 ballots in an hour. Keep that number in your head. Well, what happened is, it was the end of the day. It was late at night. I think it was like 10 o'clock at night. And they told the poll watchers to go home. So they all go home. Well, little did they know in State Farm Arena that they have security systems in there videoing every room. Well, what happened is, all the people went home, but about 5 or 6 people came back into the room. And that's what you're going to see on these screens. And what you're going to see on the screens are these people pulling suitcases. I can't remember if it was 6 or 10,000 votes they said could be in each suitcase. Pulling suitcases out from underneath these tables and running the ballots in the machines all night. Or for the next 2 hours. I think not all night, 2 hours. Well, here's what's crazy. They calculated that it's probably close to about 18,000 votes that they were able to do in that short period of time with pumping votes into the system that quickly. 18,000 votes. They caught it on camera. So you've got two stories alone that basically would change the outcome of the elections in Georgia. Now, here's what's crazy. I watched part of it, and there was a senator on there, and I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but she got nasty, and she's like, hasn't this been debunked? Well, the problem was it was debunked earlier before the video footage came out. Now they're like, oh, crud, because they've got caught. They're busted. This is video footage, okay? This is big deal. Okay. Not only that, guys, there's sworn affidavits of this stuff. People are willing to risk the rest of their lives to be put behind bars for witnessing to these things. This is serious stuff. Now, most of you want to know about Dominion. What is going on with Dominion? And it's very complicating everything from who owns it to where are votes being run across the internet or calculated across the internet or changed through the internet. Ultimately, let me say this. Ultimately, Dominion was designed for manipulation. It was actually initially Smartmatic. Hugo Suarez, I always say his name wrong, Suarez was originally behind the development of the system to sway elections in Venezuela. And there's testimony to this. Now, if you get a chance, this is the guy's name, Phil Waldron. This is, if you ever get a chance to listen to Phil Waldron, he's speaking at most of these hearings. He's an Army operations officer who specializes in computer network operations and electronic warfare. Or welfare, I guess you could say. Well, his focus, again, same as the other guy. So this is Phil Waldron. His focus is on penetrating systems to conduct strategic operations. Again, what does this mean? It means he goes into these banks or institutions and tries to break their information technology systems so that they can find holes and repair them and make sure that they don't have foreign interference or interference just from anywhere, not just foreign nationally, but any kind of foreign interference. Okay? Well, he testifies that Smartmatic was bought by Dominion and was designed to control elections. Hugo actually invested 28% in the original development of this program. Again, it was originally Smartmatic, and Dominion acquired Smartmatic, and there was actually before, there was an intermediary business name in the middle, and I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, if you really need information and you don't believe Dominion owns Smartmatic, Dominion and Smartmatic share physically the same address in Barbados. Okay, so there's loads and loads of information to know Dominion and Smartmatic are together. We've known that from the beginning. Now, which, by the way, let's say this. This is already illegal. Before we get any further in this video, let me tell you this, that the fact that Dominion has any connection to any foreign group, and we're going to learn more about that here in a second, is illegal. Trump signed an executive order in 2018 that there can't be any foreign interference in elections. Well, any kind of foreign interference in the election automatically takes any votes that are under that foreign interference out, or should, based on the law. Okay, so anyway, one of the big disagreements that you're going to see all over the line is Dominion connected to the internet, because if it's connected to the internet, that's the second thing. Voting systems are not allowed to be connected to the internet. So there's this big question about whether Dominion is connected to the internet, and there are I don't know how many hundreds of sworn testimonies that there are. And not only that, this guy Phil Waldron said in the manual of Dominion systems, it shows that the systems are connected to the internet, and they can prove that. And there's hundreds of people testifying to the fact that this is true. Not only that, in the manual, it even talks about how the machines can be manipulated, which is, I can't even believe they have that in the manual. Well, let me give you one example of a testimony of a lady that backs this up. Her name was Susan Voiles, and she has been a poll worker for 20 years and serving, I think, in management capacity in polls. Well, there was she was brought in, and she received a lot of headache, a lot of turmoil for I can't remember all the details, but basically what happened is she saw some very significant irregularities in machines and in particular in ballots. What she noticed, she's been doing ballots for years and years and years, and she noticed these ballots were all identical and they didn't have creases in them, and that they were filled out so perfectly, and they even had a white ring around where the where people filled in their spot, and said there's something wrong with these ballots and there's something wrong with the machine. And she went up to the higher authorities and they told her, check this out. They told her to call, they gave her a number for Dominion and said, you need to call Dominion and talk to them about what to do about this. So Dominion says, we got this taken care of. We can go in wirelessly or through the internet and fix the system. So you didn't have these guys that come in with flash drives, or you didn't have people come in with suitcases fixing a machine. They did it through the internet. Folks, Dominion systems are connected through the internet. There's hundreds and hundreds of witness testimonies, and it's even in their manual. So let's go on. So in Michigan, let's another Michigan testimony, and this is pretty interesting. This is not about Dominion, but this is in Michigan at a voting station at about 1 a.m. A bunch of people left. Well, there was a couple people that stayed around to finish up some stuff. Well, 2 huge food type trucks showed up, and these people actually thought, the testimony, and you can hear Rudy Giuliani sharing that these guys actually thought food was showing up to feed them, even though there was only a couple people left, and they went out, and these trucks were full of mail-in ballots, everything from ballots in bags and cardboard boxes and trash cans. Well, they brought them in thinking they had to put these ballots in the machines, and they calculated that approximately 50 to 100,000 ballots, this was in Michigan, showed up in these trucks, and not one of them that they could see, not one in the entire batch went to Trump. Here's something else that's crazy in Michigan. In one county, Antrim County, that's what I heard. I need to look at the spelling. Antrim County. They finished counting on November 3rd. Okay, this was after elections. They were done. However, there were some discrepancies, so they were called back in on November 6th. What happened, it was the same software they were using, but someone brought in a different USB drive. Pay attention to this. What happened is the results that came in November 3rd and then the results that came in November 6th after this changed the outcome of the election. Now, I don't think it changed it for Trump, but it did change it for the senators or congressmen or whatever. So, and I wish I could remember names. I should have paid more attention to that one, but that's pretty significant. But here's the deal. I could go on forever with stories like this. And I probably watched for an hour or two, and this is just some of the information that I documented. Basically I watched some of Georgia and some of Pennsylvania, about an hour of each. But the same stuff, folks, it's happening in Nevada, it's happening in Michigan, it's happening in Wisconsin, etc. This is severe election fraud. Let me say this again. This is very significant election fraud. Again, hundreds of people testifying. And here's what's amazing. Sidney Powell said, and I think she said this 2 weeks ago, she said the information about voter fraud is coming in like a fire hose. And it's been really hard for them to pick which stories to tell, because there's just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of stories in each state, in particular in these swing counties. Oh, actually, I'm going to pull this up. This is crazy. Let me look. We're going to show you something in Michigan. This is crazy. Oh no, it's not Michigan. It's Virginia. Let me read this. We're going to look at the counties. Remember we talked about voter turnout in counties, and I'm going to pronounce some of these counties wrong because I've never heard of some of them before. Loudoun County, 116% voter turnout. Falls Church City, this is Virginia. Falls Church City, 114. Fairfax City, 109. This is 109% turnout, which, remember, we said there was usually a 50 to 60% turnout. 109 in Fairfax City. Goochland County, 108%. Arlington County, 106. Fairfax County, 106. Prince William County, 105. James City County, 105. Alexander City, 105. I don't know, Fauquier County, 105. Isle of Wight County, or White, Isle of Wight, I guess that is, County, 104. Chesterfield County, 104. Surrey County, 103. Hanover County, 103. New Kent County, 103. Clark County, 103. King William County, 102. Spotsylvania County, 102. Rappahannock County, 102. And I'm going to say a lot of these names wrong. Sorry, folks. Albemarle County, 101. Stafford County, 101. Northampton County, 101. Poquoson City, 100%. Frederick County, 100%. And you can find this on judicialwatch.org. This stuff's amazing, guys. And this is actual fact. Now keep in mind, folks, 50 to 60% turnout, and these people are getting 105 to 110. I heard there was a couple counties that had up to 350%, or certain precincts maybe had a 350% voter turnout. Unreal. Now, here's what we're going to close with, and this is going to take just a second too. How does this play out? Like, what everybody's been asking, okay, who cares? So you have voter fraud. What's really going to happen? What has to happen for Biden to win, Trump to win, whatever? And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to be very bold. Biden will not be the president of the United States. He will not be. And that poses a massive problem in security and all kinds of other issues. But how does the victory of Trump take place? Now, I'm going to say something. Michael Flynn made a comment. He said, someone asked him, he said, if you, on a 1 to 10 scale of Trump winning, would you say it was a 1 that he's not going to win, and 10 he is going to win? And he said 100% 10. It's a 10. Well, how does this happen? The first thing that has to happen is the state legislators. That's why they're going to the state legislators. They are able to, they have the right and responsibility to accept or reject these votes based on the information they see. Any state legislator, folks, that's in their right mind, if they take 1% of this information, they will see that the election, there's overwhelming fraud. Actually, well, let me hold that thought. So based on that information, the state legislators have the responsibility and the opportunity to say these votes are null and void. Now, how they approach that is going to be really weird. Do they throw them out? You don't know. Do they not count certain votes? What do they do? We don't know. Now, here's the first thing they're going to look at in the Supreme Court, if it gets to that place, is going to look at first. The first thing is the states, along with the election boards, the governors, typically with election boards, election officials, passed laws and rules and regulations 3 weeks before, a month before, 2 months before on mail-in ballots. That cannot take place. That violates federal law. They're not allowed to do that. So any states that passed any kind of voter rules based on mail-in ballots in that time frame and under the governor's call or the state or the election officials, those are illegal. So automatically, they don't even have to look at voter fraud. They can say, done. The second thing that they're going to look at is interference, foreign interference. Trump signed an executive order in 2018 that they could have no foreign interference. Well, Dominion is just, there's foreign interference everywhere. So that's automatically number 2. Well, here's the problem. State legislators, in my gut says they're not going to do it. They don't have, excuse the terminology, they don't have the balls. And the reason why, and I kind of get it, if I ran for Congress or Senate and, I have to live in that community maybe I voted against because I saw, and I'm going to have a lot of people pounding on my door. They know where I live. They know where my family goes to school, my children. I would do it because I'm a pretty bold guy, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people that aren't willing to take that risk. Now, so we'll see what plays out there. The second thing that's going to happen is it would go to the Supreme Court. And basically the Supreme Court would say, yeah, there's plenty voter fraud, and they would send it to Congress. And at that point, and you've heard this, some people have heard this, they actually go and the Congress gets 1 vote per state based on the popular vote. And right now it's like 26. Basically Trump would win. So, okay, that's scenario 2, which is probably more likely to happen than scenario one. There's a third scenario, and honestly, I don't even know how this plays out. I would encourage you to go watch Rick Green with Front Porch Live. He's a constitutional textualist that really digs into what happens in these type of scenarios, and he looks at history and looks at the Constitution and the articles and all this kind of stuff. He's got a really good video that's, I think it's called The Three Paths to Victory for Trump. And you can find it on YouTube, Front Porch Live. But anyway, it's a third scenario that basically says it gets that the Senate and the House meet, and Pence calculates the electoral votes and announces them based state by state. And let's say he announces he has to start with the letter A, so he start Alaska or whatever. Well, he'll get to Arizona, and if anybody complains, anybody objects, if someone raises their hand and says, I object, then everything stops at that point. He has to have a letter written. It could be, I think, even just by hand, taking it up to him and saying, we object. Then it has to go, and the Senate and the House meet separately. They debate. They do their thing. They come back. But the problem is nobody really knows the legalities from that point, because all the articles that have been written are very confusing at that point. So that's step three. I think that's going to be too confusing, and I don't think it'll end up there. Here's what I believe is going to happen. This is the fourth path to victory, which is it's basically path number 2 mixed in with some other stuff. And let me explain. Trump, pay attention to this, folks. Trump can use his executive power to overrule the elections. Now, just a side note, I'm going to say this. General Flynn and General McInerney are calling for this to happen. They've already said they want this to happen, okay? Here's the scoop. I'm not sure of the official terminology, how this is going to play out, or what they're going to call it. But based on information we received, that Trump has the full authority to do this based on the voter fraud, mostly considering he signed an executive order in regard to foreign interference in 2018. So pay attention to this. Based on the fact that there's foreign interference in the elections, this can be considered in a way, and I'm not sure how they're going to phrase it, like an act of war. Call it a cyberspace war, call it electronic warfare, call it election war. I don't know what they would call it, or even if they give it a name. But the idea is there's so much foreign interference in our elections that Trump has the full right, and I'm going to say this, and the responsibility to declare this as an act of war, and as a result take some form of executive action to stop the election process, to take out certain ballots, whatever he feels he can do based on the information that he have. And I honestly believe, I'm going to say this again, I believe he has the responsibility to do that. This is not one of those elections where you can go, well, we're not really sure if there was foreign interference, or we're not sure if there was voter fraud. Hogwash. You can't have states with 105 to 110% voter turnout and not be voter fraud. That alone is immediate, throws it out. This election was stolen. Biden will not be the winner of the 2020 presidential election, not even close. And Sidney Powell said this very well when this first started. She said that, and so did Lynn Wood, and other people, Trump won by a landslide. So what we're going to look at is the steps that Trump is going to have to take to make this happen. Step number 1, Trump extends national security order on foreign election interference, which he already did in 2018. Step number 2, monitor and track elections. Monitor and track election night at actual SCIF rooms, the SCIF room. Sidney Powell said that he's already done that, and so did Michael Flynn. So step 3, secure the servers based on what General McInerney says, which he supposedly already did as well. The ones in Frankfurt, Germany. You've heard the story. Now, by the way, and I need to dig into this because I don't want to say something that'd be wrong, but there was supposedly the CIA found out that information was being sent over the internet to Germany, and so they sent some people, and supposedly Trump sent another group of people to capture the data before the CIA got there, and there was actually a confrontation, and supposedly 5 people are dead and 1 person injured. And we'll find more out about that later. But supposedly this server is in the president and the government's possession and secured. And supposedly McInerney and I think even Flynn may attest to that. So that's step 3. Step 4, President Trump prepares by Americans by delivering a speech about election fraud. Now, he did this, wasn't yesterday, I think it was 2 days ago. And he even made in his statement, I'm going to misquote him, but he said something like, this is probably the most important presidential address he's ever given. Now, I want you to pay attention. Anytime he tweets or something, he will say in big print, we will win. Pay attention to that. He knows what's going on. So that's step 4. So step 1, 2, 3, and 4 have already been done. Step 5, DNI Ratcliffe, in accordance with emergency order, within 45 days delivers before 12/14, so December 14th, the assessment report of foreign interference in the 2020 election, revealing alleged captured server and voting data to all Americans. So basically, somehow on or before 12/14, that we're going to get a report of all this data interference in the foreign elections, whether it's voter fraud, I don't know what it's going to look like, etc. Number 6, Trump enacts the Insurrection Act with partial martial law and military arrest. Okay, so what it does is it says, from what I gather, it says this is what happened. We have factual evidence to prove it, and therefore these people already, maybe some arrest will take place at that time or whatever. Okay, step number 7. Step number 7, the Supreme Court rules an emergency hearing that the national election was rampant with fraud, orders Congress to enact the 12th Amendment, which goes to the House and goes to the vote per state. So it's really similar to step 2, but it's a little bit more aggressive. And then the Senate gets to vote for the VP. But it's just a different way to get there. The idea, guys, is this is probably, in my opinion, the appropriate way for Trump to do this. Now, it's going to look bad. It's going to be very unhealthy from a media perspective. Of course, they're going to give you crap. But it has to be done. Now, I want you to pay attention to this. Trump already moved members of the special forces from all branches of the military under one chain of command, so that if he needed to take military action on groups like Antifa or Black Lives Matter or whatever, he could do so. So any internal terrorist groups or even external terrorist groups that try to take action that could cause harm once he makes it. So he's already got a lot of that in place where he doesn't have to go through a big series of chain of commands. He can basically make a call and we'll have some kind of security at some level. No telling what's going to happen. So here's the deal. There's a couple things I want to share before I finish up. My challenge for you, all of you, is to pay attention to what's happening with Michael Flynn. Go to Parler to find your information. There's some really good resources there. There's some really good news stations. Be careful with some of them. Just pray before you watch, because there's a lot of junk out there. So the question is, what is our role as Americans? What is our role as patriots? What is our role as Christians in this? Number 1 is share this information. Most people are completely unaware of the magnitude of voter fraud. And guys, I don't know how long this video is already, and I've just shared just pieces of maybe 2 hours, just snippets of 2 hours worth of stuff, which there are hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours worth of video footage that you could go through to see. This isn't just speculation. These are people that have sworn affidavits. Okay, this is just a taste. This is probably, I'm going to guess, one 1/10,000th of what's out there. This is just me playing on the internet for a couple hours. Now, what I didn't tell you about is about the truck driver who was told to drive from New York to Pennsylvania with a semi full of ballots. Didn't tell you about that. I didn't tell you about Native American Indians who were paid with jewelry to go vote for Biden. I didn't tell you about receipts and other cyberspace information that have been discovered from China, that people purchasing ballots that were shipped from China, fake ballots. I didn't tell you that Dominion is supposedly owned 25% by a Swiss investment bank, and the rest by a communist China, by the rest 75% by communist China, purchased in October for $400 million. I didn't tell you that Sidney Powell just took legal action in Arizona. They have a minimum, pay attention to this, I didn't even say this earlier, they have a minimum of 412,000 illegal ballots that they can prove are illegal. Those are the ones they know for sure illegal. So Sidney Powell is pursuing litigation in the state of Arizona. Trump, here's what's crazy. That's 412,000 ballots, and he only lost by 10,457 votes. But yet there's 412,000 illegal. I didn't tell you about Nevada, who had 1,500 dead voters and 42,248 people voted multiple times. I didn't tell you that Sidney Powell made a bold statement. Now, this one, and I've become a little bit of a skeptic at some level, but this is my Sidney Powell. She said Trump won the state of California. Based on some of the information, I don't doubt it. Okay, folks, when we showed you how in Georgia, two different groups of poll workers independently could have determined the outcome of the election very, very easily, two different stories, in a period of about 5 hours in the same precinct, could have determined, or maybe it was two different precincts, could have determined the outcome of the election just in one state. Think about how many thousands of people committed fraud during this time. This is unreal. I'm going to say this, guys, this isn't about Trump. It's really not. It's about senators. It's about congressmen who lost their positions in government because of voter fraud. This is about our rights as Americans to stand up and say, we will not tolerate this crap. Folks, this is serious. Guys, this is 12/4. We're in December 4th of 2020. And I'm confident by the time I get done with this video and put it up, there's going to be so much information that's in your face after this video that's what's hard to do these videos. The information just keeps coming out and I don't know where to start. Now here's what's going to happen. People are not going to be happy when Trump uses his playing cards because he's given the power to resolve this. Again, it's another reason Trump has special forces under his command. So here's our job. Pay attention to this. Our job as patriots, if you believe in America and you don't want to see America turned over by some brain-dead Biden and liberal communist Kamala, then we've got to share this information. There are too many people that think that there is no voter fraud. Get the information out there, okay? I believe even the hardest Democrats, the hardest-hearted, I'm saying that wrong, liberals will say, wow, there's truckloads of information. There's actually been a lot of Democrats that have come forward and said enough's enough and have reported it. So, second thing, I believe, and this is the most important, we got to pray. Guys, I believe that there's a really dark battle going on right now. And this election is really not just about America, folks. This election is a global issue. There is a global reset that is trying to take place. And we know that. We've seen plenty of evidence of that. And if we don't stand up now, here I'm going to say this. I'm going to take that comment back. Well, let me fast forward again. There is a global reset going on that is dark, dark, dark. And it's going to be scary, and we don't want to be part of that. But I'm going to step forward and say I believe we need to reset, but this reset is going to be a different reset, and this reset is going to be by patriots who stand up and speak up, and if they have to, do what they got to do to make sure America is no longer or is not going to be communist China or under the authority of these liberal Democrats who are taking away our rights one step at a time. Folks, this is the time. We have days to change America for the rest of America's existence. I'm going to close with this, and I close with this all the time. The Israelites had a lot of issues like this over thousands of years of history. Always. A king would come in and take over, and it would be disastrous, and they would be taken into captivity, and it would just be disastrous, okay? Well, in 2 Chronicles 7:14, the Lord gives this passage. It says, if my people who are called by my name would humble themselves and pray and turn from their wicked ways, and seek my holy face and turn from their wicked ways, then I would forgive them of their sin and heal their land. Guys, there's a spiritual battle going on right now that is massive. There's darkness. I feel it. I feel it when I wake up. I feel it when I go to bed. But at the same time, I feel the power of Jesus Christ on this election. I feel like God is going to move in a mighty way, but we have to pray. We have to pray. We have to get on our knees and pray. And I've shared this before, and I've shared this a couple times. The word pray, anytime you look at it in the Greek or the Hebrew in the Bible, it's all about surrendering to the will of God. And folks, this is the time. This is the time that America needs to wake up and realize time is short. So folks, please share this with family, share this with friends, share this. I can't share this on Facebook right now. I can message people with this because I'm blocked for 3 more days. So please, please, please get this out there. Thanks for watching. Feel free to comment on, this is going to be a YouTube video. I will post this on Facebook. You can message me on Facebook. It's Michael Edward Knapp and the Knapp is K-N-A-P-P, Michael Edward Knapp. Feel free to message me there. And I will get back with you. Thanks so much for watching. God bless.